Have you ever heard of a battle where an army marched 1,000 kilometers only to find no enemy on the battlefield? It sounds strange, right? But this is exactly what happened in the famous expedition of Tabuk. Let's dive into the story of the battle that never was and uncover the incredible lessons it holds. It all started in the year 630 AD, the 9th year after the Hijra. News and rumors began to swirl in Madinah. Whispers from traveling merchants and caravans spoke of a massive threat brewing in the north. The Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, was allegedly gathering a colossal army on the borders of Arabia. Reports claimed their emperor, Heraclius, was preparing a force of 40,000 soldiers, with allied Arab tribes bolstering their numbers even further. Their supposed goal, to march south, crush the nascent Muslim community in Medina, and put an end to the Prophet Muhammad's message once and for all. Imagine the atmosphere in Medina. Gah! The Byzantines were the superpower of the age. Their military might was legendary. The news sent a wave of concern through the community. This wasn't just another tribal skirmish. This was a potential existential threat. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, took these reports with the utmost seriousness. He understood that even if the rumors were only partially true, inaction was not an option. Ignoring such a threat could be catastrophic. So, he made a monumental decision. Instead of waiting for the enemy to arrive at their doorstep, the Muslims would march out to meet them head-on. This was no ordinary call to arms. The timing couldn't have been more difficult. It was the peak of a scorching summer in Arabia. The heat was relentless, water was scarce, and the journey ahead was long and perilous. The destination, Tabuk, was nearly 1,000 kilometers north of Medina, a grueling trek through unforgiving desert terrain. To make matters worse, it was harvest season. The date palms were ripe, and for a community that relied heavily on agriculture, this was the time to reap the rewards of their year-long labor. Asking people to leave their farms and livelihoods behind for a long and dangerous campaign was an immense sacrifice. This is why this expedition is famously known in Islamic history as the Ghazwat al-Usra, or the Expedition of Hardship. The Prophet made a public call for mobilization and donations. He was transparent about the destination and the challenge, which was unusual. Typically, the target of a military campaign was kept secret to maintain the element of surprise. But this time, the scale of the challenge required everyone to understand what was at stake and to prepare accordingly. The response from the believers was inspiring. Despite the hardships, they rallied to the call. Those with wealth gave generously. Abu Bakr famously brought all of his possessions, and when the Prophet asked what he had left for his family, he replied, "I have left for them Allah and His Messenger." Umar ibn al-Khattab brought half of his wealth. Uthman ibn Affan, a wealthy merchant, single-handedly equipped a huge portion of the army, providing hundreds of camels, horses, and 1,000 gold dinars. His generosity was so immense that the Prophet remarked that nothing Uthman does after this day will harm him. Women donated their jewelry, and the poor gave what little they could, even if it was just a handful of dates. A group of companions, who were too poor to afford their own mounts and equipment, came to the Prophet with tears in their eyes, desperate to join the army. They became known as the Albakan, or the Weepers, because they were so saddened they could unparticipate. Their zeal and sincerity were a testament to the community's faith. However, not everyone shared this enthusiasm. This difficult situation also brought out the hypocrites who lived within the community. They made all sorts of excuses to avoid the journey. Some complained about the heat, saying, "Do not go forth in the heat." Others were more cunning, secretly plotting to sow discord. One of them even sought permission to stay behind, claiming he feared the temptation of Byzantine women. They spread doubt and tried to discourage others from going. The Quran would later expose their motives, highlighting their lack of faith and their attempts to undermine the community from within. This expedition became a clear test, a filter that separated the truly committed from those who were merely paying lip service. With the preparations complete, a massive army of 30,000 men, the largest Muslim force ever assembled up to that point, set out from Medina. The Prophet Muhammad himself led the expedition. The journey was as brutal as expected. The sun beat down mercilessly. Water rations were strictly managed and food was in short supply. At times, the soldiers had to share a single date between them or drink the water stored in the humps of their camels. Every step was a test of endurance, patience, and faith. Yet, despite the extreme hardship, their morale remained high. Driven by their leader's presence and their unwavering belief in their cause. After weeks of arduous travel, the Muslim army finally reached Tabuk. They set up camp, ready and waiting for the mighty Byzantine army. They scanned the horizon, expecting to see the dust clouds of an approaching legion. But days turned into a week, and then another. The plains remained empty. There was no sign of the 40,000-strong Byzantine force, no Heraclius, no allied tribes, nothing. The great superpower they had marched so far to confront was a no-show. What happened? Historians suggest a few possibilities. It's likely the initial reports were exaggerated rumors. The Byzantines may have had troops stationed at the border, a standard practice for an empire, but they probably had no intention of launching a full-scale invasion of Arabia. When their spies reported the arrival of a massive, motivated Muslim army of 30,000, led by the Prophet himself, who had traveled 1,000 kilometers through the desert just to meet them, the Byzantine commanders likely thought twice. A direct confrontation seemed risky and unnecessary. They chose to withdraw their forward garrisons further into their own territory to avoid any conflict. The rumor of the invasion simply fizzled out. So, the battle never happened. The Muslims stayed in Tabuk for about 20 days, waiting. But this time was not wasted. While there was no fighting, the expedition achieved several crucial strategic objectives. The Prophet used this opportunity to engage with the local Arab tribes living in the region, many of whom were Christian and had previously been under Byzantine or Persian influence. He didn't force them to convert. Instead, he established treaties and alliances. These tribes agreed to pay the Jizya, a tax for protection, and in return, they were guaranteed their safety, property, and freedom to practice their religion under the governance of the new Islamic State. This peacefully extended the influence of Medina all the way to the Byzantine border, securing the northern frontiers without a single drop of blood being shed. More importantly, this expedition was an incredible display of strength and unity. The message it sent across Arabia and to the neighboring empires was loud and clear. The Muslims were no longer just a small, localized community. They were a formidable, unified force capable of mobilizing a massive army and projecting power over vast distances. They were willing to endure any hardship to defend their faith and their state. This show of force acted as a powerful deterrent, discouraging future attacks and solidifying the political and military presence of the Islamic State on the world stage. After 20 days in Tabuk and securing the region, the Prophet gave the order to return to Medina. The journey back was just as significant. It was on the way back that several key events occurred, including the revelation of verses from the Quran that further exposed the hypocrites and their schemes, and praised the believers for their sacrifice. When the army arrived back in Medina, they were received as heroes. The Prophet made it clear that those who had the sincere intention to join but were held back by genuine reasons, like the weepers, would share in the reward of those who actually went. So, what are the takeaways from the battle that never was? The story of Tabuk is a profound lesson in proactive leadership, preparation, and the importance of facing potential threats head-on. It teaches us that sometimes the greatest victory is the one achieved without fighting. By showing up, by being prepared, and by demonstrating unwavering resolve. The Muslims deterred a potential war and achieved their objectives peacefully. It was also a powerful test of faith that forged the community, making it stronger and more resilient. It exposed the weak links and solidified the sincere believers. It showed the world the power of unity and sacrifice when people are driven by a common purpose and a deep conviction. The expedition of Tabuk might not have had a climactic battle scene, but its impact was arguably more significant than any single military victory. It was a strategic masterpiece that secured the future of the Muslim community and reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Arabia forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story insightful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating moments in history. Let us know in the comments what you think is the biggest lesson from the Tabuk expedition. See you in the next video.